if there's somebody watching the podcast that has thought about volunteering or thinks this could be a good fit for their company and they want to get started, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them not to wait.
Mm.
If you have the opportunity to volunteer with Feeding South Dakota, I'd get on that website and start looking for some times that are going to match up with your organization. You won't regret it. It's an incredible organization. They're very well ran. You're very well organized. You walk in, you know exactly what's going to be expected of you as a volunteer. You understand the mission here, so you can feel connected in that aspect. And then you walk out of here not only tired, but you feel just so rejuvenated by the fact that you were able to have an impact on the community, and know that somebody's not going hungry tonight, because you took the time to volunteer your organization to be a part of here. You won't regret it.
Welcome back to 50 Faces with Feeding South Dakota in April, Volunteer Appreciation Month. We hope you have enjoyed all of the conversations we've had so far this month, but I'm really excited to bring you our guest today from Sioux Valley Energy, who has been volunteering with Feeding South Dakota on the regular as a group that comes in a couple times a month and spends some time packing boxes with us. So I'm going to let you each introduce yourselves because I won't do it justice. Who wants to start? Don't raise your hand at once.
Well, I'm Chinelle Christensen. I'm the Culture and Training Development Strategist for Sioux Valley Energy. I have the pleasure of being able to help a lot of our employees on their career journey with any training and development needs that they may have, along with spearheading our volunteer program, or we like to refer to it as our Community Connections program, along with a lot of various things from our apprenticeship to our coaches. So a variety of things every day there.
Busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always something new.
Yes.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's different. Culture is different than HR, right? You don't have to do the really hard conversations.
I get to do the fun conversations.
Okay. Good. Lucky you.
Yeah.
And I am Molly Burmeister. I'm the billing supervisor at Sioux Valley Energy. So a much different role than Chinelle's, but I do get the opportunity to volunteer with Feeding South Dakota quite often, as well as be a part of our Community Connections one-way projects.
So here's something I've learned about finance teams is that, numbers are not my thing. And so seriously, I'd have to close my door and say, doing math, please don't enter. But you would think it'd be a super serious type of thing. But finance people are a lot of fun. So, it might be different than culture, but it doesn't mean it's not fun.
No, absolutely.
Especially if you love what you're doing. So that's great. How long have you been with Sioux Valley Energy?
I've been there for 8 years.
8 years. And how about you?
13.
13.
Mm-hmm.
All right, long timers. Good. Well, just the right people to come and talk about our topic today, right? So we're going to talk about Sioux Valley Energy's volunteer program because it's, I think we're seeing a trend in a lot of businesses and organizations toward some paid volunteer time. But really, your program in particular has an interesting structure. But let's start with the first volunteering with Feeding South Dakota. How did that get started?
With Feeding South Dakota particularly, we started volunteering here back when one of our employee groups put together a project called One Way.
Okay.
And we were looking for avenues for our groups to get together and team build. They go off-site, do a variety of activities. But as an employee engagement group, we decided we really wanted them to have a volunteer aspect to that. And so we started looking for opportunities within our communities that we serve for them to do just that. And it was one of those things where trying to find opportunities for 100 people to go through 10 different times was a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
And Feeding South Dakota fit exactly what we needed. So that's kind of how we initially started here. And now it's been expanded to departments love it, individuals love it, beyond just our one-way efforts.
Do you remember when that was that you started with that group volunteering?
So One Way launched in 2018. So it would have been
pre-COVID.
sometime after that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you remember what the first volunteer project was by any chance?
It did. I believe it was boxes of fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
Yes.
I believe the majority of the group started with there. We did not. The backpacks came later,
Yep.
and the boxes with boxed food came later as well.
Yeah.
It was oranges and potatoes and carrots and stuff like that, if I remember correctly.
So the produce up and over.
Yeah.
Yep.
And into those boxes.
Yep.
Over and over again.
Yep.
All right.
People were definitely sore.
Yeah, I bet. Do you? Yeah, I just have realized Jennifer Stensas joined us for a conversation a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize that, yes, we had a volunteer program pre-COVID, but the state of our volunteering right now came out of COVID.
Sure.
That, people wanted to help so much, and so that really, so it's kind of like a little baby volunteer program. It's still in its infancy, but gosh, it's so developed. I mean, we have volunteer shifts in every distribution center multiple times a week. And there's lots of pieces that go into that. So that's why I ask. I'm just curious what it was like. And maybe you've noticed the progression. I don't know. But we pack a lot more than just fruit and vegetable boxes, the backpacks you mentioned, the senior boxes, the non-perishable boxes. And sometimes you're cleaning, and sorting vegetables or taking leaves off of cabbage, that kind of stuff. So you just never know what the day's going to or the sort room, the retail rescue. So, yeah. So you mentioned that you wanted to make an impact in the areas that are equivalent to Sioux Valley Energy. What is that footprint like?
So Sioux Valley has a pretty large footprint. We go into Minnesota and South Dakota.
Okay.
Molly would be able to touch more on the specifics of how far out we go. But a lot of the communities that we serve are small. And so as an organization, we were saying, how can we get into these communities that don't have people to spearhead programs? And we can kind of be those leaders within those communities. So that kind of launched some of our volunteer efforts within our organization outside of Feeding South Dakota. But Feeding South Dakota also fits what we need because it touches people within our community. We have people that live, outside of Brookings, all over by Hartford, Hills, Minnesota. I mean, we're all over. And you never know what that one box could be touching a family that's a member of ours.
Right.
So it definitely does a good job of serving our own members too.
Yeah. And you mentioned about, being in communities that there's nobody to spearhead it. The thing is, there might be a food pantry there, but bringing 100 people into a food pantry to volunteer isn't necessarily going to be the best opportunity.
Yep.
But coming in to pack food and sort food and prepare food that will go to that food pantry is a good way to help make that impact right in that community.
Right.
Well, it's nice that it was just like the perfect fit. So tell me about the leadership program a little bit more. So this launched and that started your partnership with Feeding South Dakota.
Yep.
But what was that? What is that program or is it still?
So we have an internal leadership program called LEAD that up to 8 employees can be a part of every year.
Okay. One
of the facets of the program is they have to do a project. So the very first LEAD group are the ones that created One Way.
Okay.
They really wanted to create a opportunity for employees to break down those invisible silos that you have within an organization, especially like in Sioux Valley. We have inside employees, outside. We have 4 service locations, so we have people, all across our footprint, and we really wanted to find a way to bring those people together so that they could build relationships. It makes work a lot more fun when you know the people that you're working with, and in the world that we work in, safety is extremely important. And so if you know the people that you work with more on a personal level, you're more apt to speak up in a safety sensitive situation. And so they really just took those efforts to say, how do we do this? And they came up with One Way. And we already had a volunteer program per se, where we allowed our employees to have, 8 hours at that time to volunteer to organizations that are near and dear to them.
Whatever works for them. Not necessarily just Feeding South Dakota, but they could rake the town. They could volunteer at their church. Things like that. Okay.
So then this kind of helped expand those efforts as well. Now we get 16 hours. And then the efforts that they do through One Way don't come out of their volunteer bank. So that's in addition to what they already get as an organization. And we think one of the years we did tie blankets, and we donated those, to local fire departments, ambulances, things like that. But Feeding South Dakota tends to be the favorite.
We do kind of get to be that. We don't mind that at all. We don't mind being the favorite. So, Molly, were you in one of these first programs? Is that how you got involved?
I got involved. We have a committee that now is in charge of that One Way since it's out of the LEAD program, and we're in charge of other different employee activities. So that's really how I got involved. Was this group kind of decides what the volunteer project will be, and what else goes into that team builder that day for that group going. So when we first started, we were we all have things that, like you say, are
Yes.
near and dear to
Right.
us personally. But how do you get a group of 10 or 12 of them? And coming from the cooperative world, when cooperative employees, they want to work. If they're there, they want to
Yes.
they want to do it. They want to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
So this was really the right fit, because when we're here, it's a well-oiled machine, and we are busy and we are sweating, but you know that what you're doing is making a difference.
Yeah.
And we don't want to go and sit around. So
right. There's always plenty of work.
Yes.
There's no shortage of work.
No.
I can attest for that. And it's a variety of work. I joke about putting you feel it a little bit, but there's a little something for everyone. I mean, if you need to sit because you can't stand on the cement for the whole time, there's options to help with produce bags or things like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think is really great that we're able to accommodate all of those things so people still feel they're making meaningful contribution, because they are.
Right.
So that's really, incredible. So what was it like? What did you receive back from teams when you came, or when you come? What do they say?
Everybody likes it. Everybody, I think, feels, like you said, there's a little bit for everybody. There's sometimes you need the strong guys who are carrying big boxes and restocking stuff, and then there's stuff like tying bags where we all have different wheelhouses and different levels of activity. And we've now volunteered as a department quite often. We were here a few weeks ago, and we found that has really been awesome, because we have accountants, we have billing, we have warehouse. So we've got some inside, some outside within our groups. And it's really fun for us to get together too, because we're all over the service centers. We don't get to see each other very often. So that's really been fun on a department level. So, we have our one-way group, we have our community connections program, but we've also got to start doing it as departments to use your volunteer hours, but come together.
It requires teamwork.
Absolutely.
No matter what your project, so it kind of melds you together, which is really interesting, especially if you have people who you don't work with on the norm, right? To bring them in and have them, now you got to fit that in, and to your point, that cohesiveness that it builds makes a lot of sense. And we do hear from a lot of businesses that come in that it is a great team building opportunity. But you've said fun. And I think that's an important part of it, because it is fun. I mean, there's music, there's, opportunity to just be a little bit more relaxed and have conversation and, chat and joke around. And there's some competitiveness that goes on sometimes. I bet not with you guys. Every time? So that's a lot of fun to hear, especially businesses that'll have a group that comes in the morning and then another one in the afternoon. There's this okay, how many did we pack? And then the afternoon group comes in and says, what do we have to beat?
Yeah.
And if they beat it, you can hear it. There's this loud cheer, and you're thinking, okay, they beat the morning group. So, but regardless of, we also joke that there's, quality over quantity. Because if you get going too fast in your competitiveness, suddenly, you get to that last box and somebody says, we're missing a couple cans of soup, because you just get going ahead of time. But no matter what, it's impactful. Whether you do 300 boxes in a shift or 1,200 boxes in a shift, it's helping us to do the work that we do. And here in Sioux Falls, all of that stays in the Eastern Corridor, with the exception of the senior boxes that go across the state. And so I think that does kind of resonate a little bit deeper with people when you're talking about communities that they're familiar with, names of towns that they know, all the way down to the little small rural towns. And for me, I like the fact that we can share with people we're not just serving Sioux Falls or Rapid City and Pierre, because that's where our distribution centers are, but it's broader than that. So have you had a chance to sort of do all of the volunteer things, or have you done the backpacks and the food boxes and the produce and the senior boxes and the sort room?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
I like the boxes personally.
You do?
The ones that are very set what you have to put in them, just because I feel like it brings out people's more competitiveness.
Yeah.
You can be a little bit quicker in that sense. And then you can stand in the line and chat more.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know about Molly.
I like the backpacks. They're probably my favorite, especially hearing the story behind them and how it started and where it's came to.
Mm.
Just the impact on child hunger. That's
Yeah.
I really like that program.
That's pretty near and dear to a lot of people's. That is probably, I think, the program that people are most familiar with Feeding South Dakota. And so the great thing about bringing in volunteer groups is the opportunity to educate on the broader, work that we're doing more programs than just that we're supporting community partners. And I think, I hope people have some good takeaways when they leave that opportunity and feel like they can go out and speak to some of that work when they're sitting at the dinner table or back at work the next day and somebody says, "Hey, how'd it go when you were at Feeding South Dakota?" Do you remember any particularly impactful time for you personally that you volunteered or had like a really key takeaway?
I think for me, it was one of the first times I came here. We were packing holiday boxes.
Oh, sure.
And
For like the Thanksgiving meal giveaway?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and just the realization that like how impactful that box was going to be to a
Mhm.
family, that didn't necessarily have those things for the holidays, something that I've taken for granted my whole
Sure.
life. And so I think it just hits you different when
Yeah.
you realize that that's going to make that holiday better for
Yeah.
that family. Um, it's pretty incredible to see.
Mm.
I will. I didn't really come from a family where we participated or volunteered, so I just didn't really know a whole lot about it. And coming to Feeding South Dakota has really changed that for me as a person. Not only having that impact here and seeing the need and what you guys put into it and watching everyone else have that passion, but also now wanting to extend that to other places within the
Yeah.
community and wanting to participate and
Mm.
being involved. It's really inspired me that way to want to be a better member of my community, a better member of my kids' school, their
Yes.
events,
Right.
things like that. So it's really, it's really given me a passion beyond just walking in the door and packing
Mhm.
some boxes. It's really more than that.
I think that it's being from the Midwest, everybody says Midwest nice, but I do think that that's a really important part of our culture here in the state is that we take care of each other. And it is a very eye-opening experience when you come in and you start to learn about the reality of hunger. But, you mentioned like who puts what in. Our volunteer hours last fiscal year equated to, I think, 24 full-time employees. And when you think about nonprofit organizations, you can't staff up to that level. And so we wouldn't be able to serve at the level that we're serving if it weren't for volunteers like you that are coming in and giving us your time. And so when I sit and really think about that we have people come in and give a couple hours a day every now and then, but by having thousands of people do that across the state, we're able to continue this work. And it's just like so inspiring to me to know that that's the driving factor, right? I mean, even how we're currently staffed, you couldn't put us all down there for full days and still get the work done. And so it's really great to know that people are going to come in and help us and that it's a good mission and it's something that people want to see do bigger and better things.
Mm-hmm. I think as an organization too, like for Sioux Valley, one of our co-op principles is community impact.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to align with other organizations that have similar missions,
Yeah.
the impact that you guys have on the communities that you serve, it's a lot easier to come in as an organization when it's like
Sure.
our missions align
Right.
greatly and we're both able to have this impact on a community with joint forces. And I think
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were talking about the leadership program, you said at that time, 8 hours of volunteer
Mhm.
time. What's it look like now?
So it's 16 hours right now.
Wow, 16.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So they can do 16 hours annually, and it can be at any time in the day, night, or weekend.
Okay.
And then employees can flex that time. So, like if they volunteer on the weekend or in the evenings, they can flex those hours during the week. Because we understand that nonprofits or other organizations, they need help all hours of the day.
Mhm.
And so we wanted our employees to have those freedoms to be able to do that. And we definitely have employees that use every hour that there is. And if there are some employees that are unable to use all their hours, they can donate them to the bank.
Wow.
And then, like, if somebody wants to pick up an additional 8 hours, they can do that and then continue to, give back to the organizations that they care about.
So, do you have any idea about how many volunteer hours, like in your last fiscal year, in the last year, that Sioux Valley Energy has given back to their communities?
Yeah, it was just over 700 for 2024.
700.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's across your whole footprint.
Yep.
And a variety of different, not just to Feeding South Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
but to other organizations, nonprofits, a
Mm-hmm.
variety of different things. And that's all paid volunteer time.
That's correct. So our employees get 16 hours every year that they can use for volunteering to organizations that are near and dear to them or within their department, that they can choose to do. And then they have the opportunity, if an employee can't use all their hours, they can donate that to a volunteer bank. And then if somebody has used all 16 and they want to volunteer some more, they'll pick some hours up from that bank and they're able to keep on volunteering, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, Molly, when you volunteer as a department, do you get to coordinate all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, typically.
Yeah. And because group coordinating through Feeding South Dakota is a little different than an individual signing up. How's that go for you? What's the hardest part?
It's probably finding time to get all of us in because you guys do have a lot of people who want to volunteer here. So we have to be kind of ahead of the game.
Yeah.
When the schedule comes out, we try to get stuff on it just because there are so many of us. But as far as the website and everything itself, it's really easy, especially now that we do it. People understand you have to have a waiver every year. You're going to get another email because yours expired. So now that we've been in it enough, people just know, like, oh, yep, I got my waiver email. So that's been really nice, and it's very user friendly. Like I said, it's just a lot of people want to volunteer here, which is a good thing.
So I've thought maybe you'd say the hardest part was like wrangling the people. That it'd be like herding cats, but you must not have any troubles with that.
No, they want to come. It's never about not getting responses or anything like that. It's finding a day that works for everyone, I guess, and a day that works here.
Our evening shifts, I mean, we offer once a month, and they fill up so fast. A lot of people will say, well, I can't come during the day. What do you have in the evening? And it's like, well, let me look 9 months out. And, it's hard because we have a lot of distributions in the evening. And so we have staff out already in the evening that getting that volunteer shift. I couldn't imagine what things would look like if we were offering that as well on the regular, because that would be pretty awesome, because you're right. We have great success getting the shifts filled.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you, if there's somebody watching the podcast that has thought about volunteering or thinks this could be a good fit for their company and they want to get started, what advice would you give them?
I'll tell them not to wait. If you have the opportunity to volunteer with Feeding South Dakota, I'd get on that website and start looking for some times that are going to match up with your organization. You won't regret it. It's an incredible organization. They're very well ran. You're very well organized. You walk in, you know exactly what's going to be expected of you as a volunteer. You understand the mission here, so you can feel connected in that aspect. And then you walk out of here not only tired, but you feel just so rejuvenated by the fact that you were able to have an impact on the community, and know that somebody's not going hungry tonight because you took the time to volunteer your organization to be a part of here. You won't regret it.
Wow. Okay, Molly, how are you going to top that? What advice would you give?
Well, Chinelle kind of nailed it there, but I would say reach out. If you have questions and you're nervous about that first time, call Alyssa. She's great. She's helpful. She knows her stuff. And once you get in the door, ask the guys down on the lines that are helping you. I can't remember both of their names right now.
Matt and Ben.
Yes, there you go. They're so knowledgeable. And if you're like, what are we doing? Or what is this for? Or how many of these are you going to be doing over the next few days or whatever?
Or why is this going in the box?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're so knowledgeable, and it's very cool to see that and then hear that other side of it of, well, this is why I'm throwing a box of mac and cheese in here, or whatever it is, or why it's peaches, but last week it was pears, or like there's a whole crazy process behind the scenes of how you even get everything here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say reach out to Alyssa. She's great. She'll tell you what to expect, and then once you get your feet in the door, ask questions, because it's really a cool process behind the scenes that we don't even see when we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I have one more question for you before we go. So I don't know who to ask first. I'm gonna ask Molly first, but then that gives you the leg. I don't. Anyway, if South Dakota were a fruit or a vegetable, what would it be and why? Okay, I've asked you both at the same time, so anybody can answer. I don't have to wait.
I'm gonna say a vegetable because.
But what kind?
Oh,
Yeah.
Sweet corn.
Okay. You're not the first to say that. So, okay. All right. Tell me more. Why do you pick that?
Partly because there's corn on the picture behind you.
Okay, good.
But also just because I think it's something we grow here. I'm not going to say strawberries or something because we don't grow it here. Well, not saying we don't, but
it's local.
Yes.
Okay, good pick.
Oh, man. I was not expecting you to ask that question. That was not on the sheet.
Nope.
I'm going to say pineapple.
Okay.
Because while people may think that South Dakota is boring, it's actually pretty sweet here. There's a lot of hidden gems. There's a lot of cool things to see in South Dakota, and there's a lot of really nice people.
These are both great answers, and not the strangest ones I've gotten, so this is good. Well, thank you for being here today, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of 50 Faces of Feeding South Dakota. Hey, if you have a chance to volunteer, you've gotten some great advice today on how to get involved and what it's like to be here. Or if you know somebody who volunteers, please be sure to thank them on our behalf and make sure that you recognize all the people that are helping us to make this great work happen across the state. We'll see you on the next episode.